So I meant to start this video earlier. I meant to start it right after GFX. I thought I would get back and give you my thoughts fresh off the plane. That did not happen, obviously, and the month got away from me. I'm not sure if it got away from the rest of you, but I'm kind of in shock that we're halfway through the year. With that in mind, I feel like maybe this is a good time to put this video out there and talk to you a little bit about just some of the GFX things. For these videos, I try to think of, what are some of the timely topics that I've been discussing with fleets and some things that I've heard, whether it's trends or challenges, accomplishments, whatever that may be. But June is, of course, at least for this year. We usually do whole GFX in June, but June was GFX for me at least. So of course, the months leading up to it are very focused on the event itself. But once June hit, it was okay. This is really this is happening. Everything's a go, and we're gonna be flying out to California soon, going to Long Beach Convention Center, and everything happens and, getting to see all you guys. So, it was, it's always a bit of a whirlwind. I'd love to say that, there's moments where I can just kind of like sit there and soak it in, but it's always a busy event. And I think that's such a good thing as well, but we can talk about that later. But mainly what I wanted to talk about was just, again, that kind of post GFX recap. And the reason I didn't get around to this earlier or sooner was just because of all the craziness that happens once you get back. I was talking to some of the fleets that are on the East Coast like I am, and just kind of that, post-trip catch-up that you do, no matter what you're doing, no matter, even if it's a trip that's an hour away, there's still the, the catch-up from everything and, trying to stay on top of things. And just looking back on the event as a whole, just to see what we did right, see what we did wrong. We put out our survey, looking at that feedback as well. So a lot of those post-event catch-up things that you just want to make sure you're on top of. And on my side, also putting out the articles, and we've been working on videos from interviews that we did at the event. So just a lot of things that still happen after the event. But going back to the original point of GFX as a whole, just kind of my thoughts and takeaways and things that I am looking forward to for GFX 2027. So first of all, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for just for being there, for being present. Of course, from my team as well. But it's always just so great seeing you guys. We're in a world where everybody's all scattered all over the place, and I love that we also get all these viewpoints from everywhere. But it is always just so special to have you all there in one place. Of course, the first day with the ride and drive, and we had our OEM panel, our first timers orientation, and of course the honor celebration. I hope that that's also a time that is a bit of a surprise for some people to get to see, who won, for example, the Lifetime Achievement Award, or who became Fleet Manager of the Year, or just how you ranked in the leading fleets as well. So, and then of course, over the next couple of days, the educational sessions, which are huge, as well as our exhibit floor, getting to talk to vendors, see what new tech is out there, just to, again, have everything in one place. So it was a lot of learning. Again, I always tell people that I know fleets go there to learn, but I know for myself, it's always a learning experience. And one thing that I did notice, we had a lot of first timers, which I thought was awesome. So as far as whether, these are people who are new to fleet or just new to GFX, I love the fact that we got to meet and talk to people who are getting to be a part of this family that is the government fleet family. So that just made me really excited to see all of that. And as well, I just love getting to see all of our experienced fleet managers and people in fleet be able to share their knowledge and experience, again, whether it was in a session or outside as well. So as far as the sessions go, some of the topics, I feel like there was definitely a range of topics. I mean, you could always hit on the basics. We have data, we have fleet leadership, but we also wanted to make sure that we touched on a few things that went a little bit outside of maybe the usual topics discussed. So, we AI is becoming bigger. So we had some people talking about AI and just what that looks like for fleets. We even talked about winterization for your fleets as well. So again, trying to make sure that there's a little something for everybody there, depending on where you're at and what you're wanting to do with your fleet. And I think what also stood out for me at least was just the need to always be learning. I always just like to hear how fleets who or fleet managers who've been in this for many years and how they say they're always trying to find something new that they can learn. And I was talking to one fleet manager recently who is a former number one leading fleet, and just say how he was saying, he was like, if you go to an event like this and you come away with nothing, then you're probably not looking as hard as you should be as far as trying to find the educational information. And I thought that was interesting because, you go to an event like this and maybe you go, okay, well, I have experience in this area, or I know about preventive maintenance, or we're already, figuring out our technician hiring program, whatever that may be. But maybe it's just one little nugget of information that you hadn't thought of that could actually make a huge difference for your fleet. And maybe it doesn't make a huge difference, but maybe it just makes things a little bit easier for you and your team. And I think that's a great perspective to take into it. So just food for thought for 2027. What I also noticed too was the sharing. And when I say that, it's nobody is gatekeeping information. At least it doesn't seem that way, just talking to the fleets in this industry. We had one of our fleets who was deciding to go take a tour at another fleet's facilities and just kind of see how they're doing things. I talked to a few fleets afterward who were saying that, yeah, we want to talk to this fleet a little bit more to see how they implemented such this and this. And I think at GFX, it gives you a really good way to take a step back and see how that information is being shared with other fleets. And that, again, this is a huge community that also feels kind of small in the same sense because of those great connections that are being made. And it's so easy to say, hey, I met you at GFX. Do you mind if I get your number? And could I call you when I have questions on A, B, or C? And so many of the fleets are so excited to do that. And I love that. I love that about this community. And it makes me so happy hearing those stories afterward about those connections that were made and that information that's being shared to help fleets as they move forward in their journey. Because again, this is all a journey, and even the fleets that have been number one leading fleets, or maybe their fleet manager has been named Fleet Manager of the Year, or whatever that may be, they're still working on projects. They're still trying to improve, and they're still trying to look for ideas of how to do that. So I think a big part of that has been using that information, using those connections, and just saying, hey, I'm not really sure about this, but I'd love to get your insight on it. And if nothing else, I hope that GFX does provide that for people. And again, we want every year we want to make it more inviting. We want to create more ways for fleets to be able to share that information, to be able to take that information back with them. So, of course, at the end of the day, we always want you guys to share that with us and to say, hey, we'd really appreciate if you guys could do more of this so that we can take this information back for our fleet as well. And going back to the point I made earlier about all of the new attendees we had, I think that's also something to get excited about. We also do have fleet managers who are or have retired and are still involved, and that next generation is coming into their own and becoming leaders in their own right. And I think it's going to be a really exciting time to see what they take from past fleet leaders and also implementing their own strategies. So I think it's a lot to look forward to. I know we do have a lot of challenges that we see within the industry, but I think there is also a lot of good, a lot of positivity that can come from this as well. And it's because of the people that are in this industry. So there is a lot of hopeful discussions talked about, and a lot of opportunities, I think, that fleets are seeing despite the challenges that are out there. But anyway, that's just my rambling post GFX. I wanted to make this a quick and casual video about my thoughts on everything, and just as somebody who is very much a part of the event, but also as somebody who gets to kind of take a step back and observe as well. Again, want to thank you all for being there. I know for a lot of fleets, it's a bit of a a time consumer, and it it does take time out of your day. The amount of fleet managers I spoke to said, I'm still getting texts, I'm getting calls and emails, and I need to prove this or sign this or whatever it may be. We know that just because you're at GFX, the job doesn't stop. And we, again, really appreciate you guys being a part of what we do, and are just excited to see you guys in 2027. But in the meantime, I know it's back to business as usual. But again, GFX doesn't stop. And I want that to be a takeaway from this as well, that we are, again, of course, planning for 2027. We'll be in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And we're trying to figure out what the best sessions would be, who the speakers we should bring in, just topics. So again, I always want to make sure that you guys are letting me know what your thoughts are. I had some great ideas brought in by other fleets about leading fleets specifically, and we'll be sharing that later. But some more ways for fleets to use that as a metric for themselves when they fill out the application, and just to make that more useful rather than just an application and say, here's your ranking, but a good way for fleets to understand where they stand, what they're doing at the moment, and how they can improve, and bring in our judges into that as well, not just through our judging process or through our leading fleets panel with the judges, but beyond that, and having more one-on-one discussions and deeper dives into how fleets are doing. But anyway, there's more to come, obviously, lots more to talk about GFX, and we are excited. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July weekend, and we'll be talking to you soon.